I don't know if you recognize this music. I certainly do. It's in my top films of all time. As you know, listening to the show, I'm a baseball guy. This is the theme music to Field of Dreams, 1989 sports movie. And that's where my good friend Joe Fortunato is going this morning as we go to film school and go back in time. But I'm going to let Joe take it, and we'll go back and forth with our film school this morning. Joe, Field of Dreams, you pulled out one of my faves.
Good morning, Ray. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, and it's a favorite of mine as well, and I think a favorite of a lot of people, although we'll counter that a little bit in just a moment. Field of Dreams from 1989. It was released May 5th, 1989, directed by Phil Alden Robinson, as well as written by Phil Alden Robinson and W.A.P. Kinsella, who wrote the original book. Stars, of course, Kevin Costner, Amy Madigan, Ray Liotta, James Earl Jones, Timothy Busfield, and the great Burt Lancaster. This was his last film that he did before passing, or retiring and passing, I guess I should say. It did have 3 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, also writing and music. You just played some of the theme song there by James Horner. It's the only Best Picture Oscar nominee that year not to be nominated for any acting categories. And it was the only Best Picture nominee not to win any Academy Awards either. So some dubious distinctions there, I suppose. The movie's very famous line, "If you build it, he will come," was voted number 39 movie quote by the American Film Institute of all-time movie quotes. And this is what I said, I kind of teased a moment ago. It was also, believe it or not, voted one of the 20 most overrated movies of all time by Premiere. Honestly, that's a list we might want to dig into at some point. But,
who put out that list, Joe? They're on my hit list now.
Yeah, well, again, I don't want to get too off course, but there's some movies that will raise some eyebrows on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the production scouted more than 500 farms in Iowa before finding the one near Dyersville that had all the physical qualities that they wanted, plus enough isolation to make filming a little easier. After the filming was completed, the family that owned that farm kept the field and added a small hut with inexpensive souvenirs and stuff. And as of just before the pandemic, visitors were free to come onto the field and play baseball as they pleased. It was sort of an open thing from between April and November. Some of you might remember on August 12th, 2021, Major League Baseball sort of had their own Field of Dreams game where the Yankees and White Sox played a game, an actual game, on the field that they did there on location of that iconic baseball diamond. And that was, I believe, the highest rated regular season game of the year that year. And for those who saw it, it was really amazing. All the players walked out of the cornfield, and so did Kevin Costner. It was really a pretty emotional event. I really love that. The movie was originally called Shoeless. That was the title after Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
But test audiences didn't like that because they thought it sounded like a movie about a bum or a hobo. So they ended up changing it to Field of Dreams. Little known fact, although I'm seeing this a little bit more, so maybe it's not so little known anymore. But then unknown, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are among the thousands of extras in the Fenway Park scene, and they're uncredited. In fact, later on, Ben Affleck was working with Phil Alden Robinson on something, and he said, "Hey, nice to work with you again." Robinson said, What are you talking about? And he reminded him that they were extras in Field of Dreams.
Burt Lancaster's final role, right, Joe, in Field of Dreams, and then, of course, Kevin Costner, James Earl Jones, Amy Madigan, not to get lost. I thought she was terrific, and I just thought the casting was terrific for this film as well, and I know you always like to go down that road. Yeah,
and, some of the fun casting tidbits, if you want to call it that, they didn't really originally consider Kevin Costner for the role because they didn't think he would do it because he had just done Bull Durham the year before. But Costner ended up reading the script and was so interested in the project, he said he felt that this movie could become this generation's It's a Wonderful Life. And he wasn't too far wrong, I think. Tom Hanks was originally offered the role of Ray Kinsella, but turned it down. This is kind of an interesting one. The voice, of course, that plays a role in the movie that Kevin Costner hears in the cornfield, is billed in the credits simply as himself, and the identity of the actor is unknown. But the general rumor consensus, although this has never been officially confirmed, is that it's the voice of Ed Harris, who was the real-life husband of Amy Madigan. But there's also some speculation that the voice was Ray Liotta, Timothy Busfield, or even Kevin Costner himself. So that's sort of a kind of a fun mystery. Again, who's who of Hollywood people were considered for the role of Annie? Kim Basinger, Jamie Lee Curtis, Gina Davis, Meg Ryan, Sigourney Weaver. So a lot of big names considered. And for the role of Ray, we already talked about Tom Hanks, but Tom Cruise, Alec Baldwin, Michael Douglas, Richard Dreyfuss, Harrison Ford, Michael Keaton. Again, kind of a who's who, if you want to call it that, of the hot actors at the time. One thing that's interesting on the production side is that, you know, the film was in Iowa. It was in the middle of a drought, so the cornfields surrounding the diamond had to be given lots of extra water, and so they would grow tall enough for the actors to disappear into the stalks. However, as a result of this super care by the groundskeepers, the corn grew too fast for the Costner shots, and when the corn was above his shoulders, he has to walk on an elevated plank so that you can see his head amongst the corn stalks. And you remember that's a very famous scene as he's sort of walking through the corn. The grass itself was thousands of pallets of green grass brought in to make the baseball field. But because of the haste in planting and the shooting schedule, that grass didn't grow appropriately. So in the end, they just had to paint it green. So the green on the field is painted. Before I lose thought of the casting, I do want to mention that they wanted to cast James Stewart as Moonlight Graham instead of Burt Lancaster. And Stewart hadn't acted on screen for almost a decade at that point. I think Burt Lancaster's great, but I think it would have been really interesting to see James Stewart in that role.
No doubt about that. And, of course, not to be lost in the casting, right, Joe? Dwyer Brown, who played John Kinsella, Kevin Costner's father, was from nearby Highland High School, right up the road. So, and I had a chance to interview him a few years back, and certainly a memorable moment for him as well.
Kind of tying in with the whole dad thing there, the line, another famous line from the film, "Hey, Dad, want to have a catch?" Originally didn't include the word dad, and audiences were kind of disappointed in the lack of acknowledgement of the father and son. So the word dad was looped in during filming post-production. And that's, for a lot of guys, I was going to say men, but anyone, I suppose, that's kind of the crying moment. Hey, Dad, want to have a catch? Without that dad, audiences notice the difference there.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. And that's the moment in that film right at the end when he says those words. My son played a lot of baseball, and we played a lot of catch out in the front yard for sure through the years. That's the moment in that film where I also, still to this day, every time I watch that doggone thing, I get a little teary-eyed right there at that moment when he says those words.
Oh, yeah, and we're talking about, this film being on various lists and stuff at the beginning. This is unofficial, but I do see this mentioned all the time on sort of unofficial lists of crying movies. Brian's Song is usually number one on stuff like that, but Field of Dreams is usually mentioned right up there for movies that make guys cry or anybody with a beating heart, I suppose.
Yeah. Film School this week, Field of Dreams, just a great flick. It's big on my list for sure. Joe Fortunato with us, joins us Fridays. Hey, Joe, before I let you go, we're a little bit over a month away before you and I take Film School on the road again. We're going to go down the Jillies in late July, and you're going to do Film School. I'll be there with you on stage. I can't wait for this because I know, speaking of favorite movies, Field of Dreams, one of mine, I think at the top of Joe's list, at least one of them, is Jaws. And Joe's going to do Film School with us live on location at Jillies, Joe, and I can't wait for that.
No, you're absolutely right. It's not near the top. It is at the top. Jaws is my favorite movie. And so it's always my most requested film to do when I do Fortunato Film School Live. So we don't get a chance to do it that often, but this is going to be July 27th. Doors open at 11 a.m. The movie will start at 12 a.m. And, of course, you can have a delicious brunch there at Jilly's. And, again, that's at Jilly's Music Room in Akron. I won't go into too much detail because we'll be talking about it over the course of the month. But tickets this time are very nominal, $5, and it's a reserved seating. So you get to pick where you sit in Jilly's great little room there. And so I encourage people to get their tickets early so you have first choice or early choice of where you sit. And for those who don't know, what we do here is we'll introduce the movie, Ray and I, and then we'll sit down and we'll screen it together, the entire movie, and I will do live commentary pointing out interesting production facts, trivia, movie mistakes that you see on screen are always fun. It's a really great event, and like I said, the tickets are only $5 to get in. And then if you want to enjoy brunch, that's optional, but I encourage you to do so because it's delicious. If you're interested in this, go to Jilly's Music Room's website. You can Google them, and it'll have a link on their calendar of where to get tickets. Or you can go to Facebook and search for Fortunato Film School Live, and it should pop up, and the link is there to get tickets as well. And we want to see everybody out there because this is going to be a fun one.
Well, we've done this twice so far. We did Indiana Jones, and then when we did Psycho, it was completely filled up. So to Joe's point, reserve your seats and get down to Jilly's because this is going to be a can't miss when we go to film school with Jaws coming up at the end of July. Go to their website, get your tickets today. Hope to see a lot of you folks down there. And Joe is incredible at doing film school. What we do here on Fridays, it's kind of a digested version. What he does there, it is a remarkable what he does with his illustrator and everything else in regards to the movie. So get your tickets now for our film school on the road at Jilly's for Jaws in July. Joe, as always, my friend, thanks for the time to visit. We'll do it again next Friday, okay?
I can't wait. See you then.
You got it. Joe Fortunato, film study professor, joins us for Film School each and every Friday here on 93.5, 1590 WAKR.